Fault assignment. So given a protocol fault, we can often narrow down why the protocol fault took place. So given a fault in the protocol, we can often narrow down what faults in individual nodes could have led to the fault in the protocol. And often we can do this to at least one of several causes. So one example here, blockchain fork. Right, so this is just a very simple example on a simple protocol. This is in some way kind of the simplest protocol fault that you could have. Right, so clearly there is a protocol fault here because it's a deviation from perfect execution, right? Perfect execution says you have blocks, on top of those blocks you create new blocks, on top of that new block you create a new block, and blocks never kind of get deleted or reverted. But here you have two blocks get created on top of the same parent, and one of those blocks just kind of falls away, right? So you do clearly have a protocol fault here. So the question is, what faults in nodes or what faults in the network could have led to this? And there's actually 5 cases. So one case is that B ignored C or D, right? So the first case is, you first see block A got created, then block C got created, maybe block D got created. Miner B saw at least block C, maybe even saw block C and D, but decided, screw those guys, I'm just going to keep building on A. So that's one example. Possibility 2 is the same thing except C ignored B, right? So B came first. C said, oh, screw you, B, I don't like you, so I'm just going to keep on building on A. And then D, D saw B, D saw C, and D just decided, okay, I don't really know which one to pick, I'm just going to randomly pick, and I'm going to go with C. Case 3, C did not send to B, right? So it's entirely possible that the people in the network were kind of colluding with each other in order not to send blocks to B. So even though blocks C and D existed, maybe they were not sent to B. And B only saw A, B kept building on A, and then later on the blocks were published. Case 4, B, the same thing except B did not send to C. And case 5, network fault. So what do we know from here? So first of all, we can exonerate A, right? So none of the fault models said that A did anything wrong. The second thing is that we can exonerate D, because none of the fault models say that D did anything wrong. But if you look, the fault assignment for B and C is symmetrical, right? So for every case where B is at fault, there's also a case where C is at fault. So what does it actually mean in terms of fault assignment methodology? Basically, what fault assignment methodology says in this case is B and C should both be punished, and ideally they should both be punished equally. Now notice that this is a deviation from kind of Satoshian, the Holy Book, because in the Satoshian Holy Book, B gets punished and C gets a reward. In the Holy Book of Crypto Economics, B and C both deserve to get kicked, right? So, and there's lots of nice reasons to do this. So, for example, one of the reasons is this is actually a very good way to, really reduce the extent to which things like selfish mining become are an issue. So, principles of penalty assignment, right? So, if you can take a protocol fault and convert the protocol faults into individual node faults, then what are the principles according to which you should figure out what the penalties are? One principle is maximum penalty upon conviction. So if you can unambiguously prove that one specific party is faulty, then you know what you should do? You should kick them, you should kick them, you should kick them again and again, until, and you should kick them as hard as you possibly can. And the reason basically is, you know they're guilty. Now ideally, in order to be able to kick them really hard, you would want them to have things like a security deposit at stake. So, you want them to be kind of put up money in order to participate in the protocol. And the higher their security deposit is, the more you can kick them. So, the more you can, basically the bigger the disincentive that you can assign to them. So that's one principle. Basically, why not punish more? The second principle is, if you can't choose, so if a fault assignment tells you that one of n parties is guilty, but you can't tell exactly which one, then you should punish all of them. But you should only punish all of them slightly, because if you punish all of them too much, then you get a protocol that's kind of a bit too inhospitable to regular nodes, because they could get an honest node could potentially get punished just because they kind of fell in with the wrong crowd in some crypto-economic sense. So, so in this case, right, if you're B, right, potentially B could easily be an honest node. but you don't want to like delete B's entire deposit. You know, you don't want to make B's kind of virtual Bitcoin, virtual mining farm burn up, right? But you do want to punish them. So you have to kind of balance between basically incentivization and being nice, and that's a trade-off. The third principle is pay for performance. So the total rewards, or like the total rewards minus penalties, should be an increasing function of protocol quality, right? So the total sum of the rewards and penalties that you assign should go up as the protocol, the observed protocol execution gets closer and closer to the optimal protocol execution. So example reward assignment here, A can get a reward of 1, D can get a reward of 1, B and C can both get nothing. Or in a proof of stake protocol, you can imagine B and C both being penalized. So the benefits, you know, if we know that someone is faulty in a way that causes protocol failure, they'll be punished. But, you know, innocent actors may be punished too, but we can kind of down briefing opportunities and down the risk for them. And selfish mining issues are easier to resolve. So, proof of stake, in general, is a consensus algorithm where that relies on signatures that are signed by bonded validators. So bonded validators basically means that they have in the protocol state some number of cryptocurrency tokens, and these cryptocurrency tokens are subject to rules that say, first of all, the actors can't withdraw the tokens immediately, and the second thing is that if the actors do things that are bad, then those tokens could potentially be the subject of penalties. So properties that you want to have is you want to have safety. So you want to have some mechanism by which blocks could get finalized, and you don't want blocks to get finalized to get unfinalized. Or you don't want two contradictory blocks to get finalized at the same time. And you also want to have liveness. So liveness, kind of as in proof of work, you know, the system keeps going, and the system keeps finalizing at least something. The crypto-economic security margin in proof of stake is much higher than in proof of work, because with proof of work, you're only allowed to use rewards, right? In proof of work, you're basically the only incentives that you have are rewards, and so the crypto-economic security margin cannot exceed the amount that you're willing to pay. In proof of stake, because you can include deposits, the crypto-economic security margin can get much higher. So naive proof of stake, there are these kind of nothing at stake flaws. So, you know, you have basically the challenge here is that in a naive proof of stake algorithm, where you just kind of make blocks and those blocks you know, all you have is rewards, you don't have penalties. Basically, in any case where there's a fork, you have an incentive to make blocks on top of all possible forks at the same time, because, you know, every fork has a non-zero chance of succeeding, and so why not? Now, there's two solutions to this. One of those solutions is to penalize equivocation, right? So one solution is to try and say, if a validator does kind of vote on both A and B, then you can detect the behavior and you can penalize it, and penalize it really hard. And so if you do that, then this becomes no longer an option, and so the incentive becomes to vote on the chain that you think is most likely to succeed. The second thing that you can do is you can penalize being wrong, right? So you can say, if you make a block, and the block ends up not being part of the main chain, then, you know, that validator also receives some penalty. And this also resolves the problem. So, you know, these two approaches kind of have their own different trade-offs. Right now, we tend to focus on penalizing equivocation more, but at smaller scales, penalizing being wrong also has its place. So, this is some of the work that we've been recently doing on Casper. So, one of the work, basically, these are kind of some of the crypto-economic versions of the properties that we want our protocols to have. Right, so one of them is auditable safety. Auditable safety is kind of like the crypto-economic version of BFT safety. And the definition basically is, if two conflicting values both get finalized, then at least you should be able to prove that at least 1/3 of bonded validators are faulty, and at least 1/3 of bonded validators were unambiguously faulty, and so we can prove that they're faulty, and so we can kick them again and again. So this is auditable safety. So you could kind of make you can make a strong argument that any protocol that's kind of Byzantine fault tolerant safe in the traditional definition can be turned into a protocol that's auditably safe. And the general way that you do this is you basically show that if you add the proper kind of protocol armor, and which Vlad might talk about later, then any protocol execute any fault of a node. You can prove that any fault of a node is either a provable fault or it's a fault that's indistinguishable from latency. And over here, you might notice I said asynchronous VFT safety, and asynchronous VFT safety basically means that this algorithm is safe regardless of what the latency is. And so, if a fault is equivalent to latency, then that fault should not cause the algorithm to break. So basically what this means is that you can take protocols that are safe in an asynchronous model and turn them into protocols that are auditably safe. Plausible liveness. So plausible liveness is another kind of version of liveness, which basically states if you have a protocol, then the protocol should not get stuck, right? There should always be a plausible execution by honest nodes by which the protocol can finalize something. And one definition basically states, unless there have already been at least a third of provable faults, there exists a set of messages that 2/3 of validators could send to finalize one of a set of options. And you can kind of show that plausible liveness is similar to a partially synchronous VFC liveness. Basically, it's the same logic as before. All faults are either provable or they're indistinguishable from latency, and the latency at some point is going to stop, because that's kind of part of the partially synchronous model. Data availability. So this is kind of the last really important thing. Data availability becomes a very serious issue when you start talking about sharding. Because in a sharded blockchain, you get to the point where a single node, there's so much data being passed around, there's so much data in the state, there's so much data in the transactions, that a single node cannot possibly download all of it. And so you have to ask, if you cannot download all of it, if there is no such thing as a full node, or at least if being a full node is out of reach of basically everyone except for Etherscan, then how do kind of regular users end up making sure that they are kind of on the correct chain? How do regular users end up proving data availability? And so if data is available, then proving correctness is not too hard, because if data is available, you can prove correctness through various interactive computation games, the stuff that Christian Reitmeister is working on, things like TrueBit, various different protocols. But if data is unavailable, then you can't do this. And basically the problem is that data unavailability is not a uniquely attributable fault, right? You can't convict someone for data unavailability. And the reason is that if you see a data unavailability fault, then you have two cases that are indistinguishable, right? So case one is some node published data at time t3 instead of time t1, and when that node was supposed to have published data at time t1, and you have some kind of watcher node, and the watcher node correctly sent a message that says, this data is not available. The second execution is a node published data at time t1, but the watcher node is the one that was faulty. And the watcher node kind of lied at time t2 about the data being unavailable, right? So basically, with any protocol where you have some kind of watcher nodes that catch unavailability, basically the problem is that the attacker can kind of grief the watcher nodes. The attacker can make it look like the watcher nodes are the ones that are being faulty, and so you have a problem. Right? So the problem is, how do we finalize a state when we can't personally verify its correctness? With computation, you have ZK snarks, you have these interactive games. What do you do with data availability? There's two possibilities here. Right? So one possibility is you rely on an honest minority assumption. So you rely on an assumption that, let's say, at least 15% of the network is honest, and basically the idea is that 15% of some randomly selected subset of a network can hold data back from being finalized indefinitely. They get penalized for it, but they can prevent data from being finalized indefinitely. And you can assume that these 15% are not colluding, that they're not taking bribes, and basically if a conflict emerges, they're all penalized, everyone's penalized. But one of the problems with this is that this does introduce the opportunity for 15% of a network to basically heavily degrade the kind of quality of the protocol execution. But you could argue that that's not that bad, because you could do a mathematical analysis that basically suggests that what they're doing here is less bad than spamming the blockchain with transactions that have high fees. So this is one approach that you could take. Another approach that you could take is to use erasure coding, and basically use erasure coding as a way to allow light clients to kind of probabilistically spot check for sufficient data availability. Now, the reason why you need erasure coding here is because a lot of data unavailability attacks depend on making one single piece, very tiny piece of data unavailable. So you could imagine making 99% of a block available, but just keeping the other 1% hidden. But with erasure coding, anything above 50% can just be immediately turned into 100%. Right? So that's one other path towards solving the problem. So open problems. Optimal properties of consensus algorithms, so making consensus algorithms that have kind of as nice properties as possible. Censorship resistance. Maximally accurate timestamping. How can we make a blockchain that's kind of as aware of time as possible, to as high a resolution as possible, and to kind of as high a cryptoeconomic security margin as possible, as difficult to collude against as possible. Scalable validation, and optimal solutions through data availability problems. So, this is stuff that we are currently thinking about, and if anyone's interested in kind of working with us on this, feel free to reach out to the research team. Thank you.